Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and all those in between, and welcome to ArguMovies. My name is Luke.
I'm Dom!
And this is basically our podcast where we're going to argue about movies, clues in the name. The idea for the podcast is we pick a series of movies, whether it be one, well, probably not one, that's not a series, but 2, 3, and we're going to argue about which movie in those series is the best movie. Pretty simple. This first episode...
on top of that...
This first episode we're going to be arguing about the Cornetto Trilogy. So that includes Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and TheWorld'sEnd.
I have chosen TheWorld'sEnd for my preferred movie out of the three.
And I have chosen Hot Fuzz.
He's just wrong there. So.
I'm not. It's quite clearly the best of the three.
We haven't chosen Shaun of the Dead is because we both agreed that as strong as a film as it is, it's not our preferred.
Yeah.
So we'll say it is a very good movie. It's got really good comedy, action, everything, but we're not talking about that one because we both decided it's not our favorite.
Yeah, it's a very good movie. It's like trying to compare something great to something amazing. It's still great, but you can't. It's just not what we're going to be talking about today, unfortunately. So, Dom, why don't you make your opening statement about TheWorld'sEnd and why you believe it's the best?
Okay, so I think TheWorld'sEnd is the better movie. Not just because I saw all these films when I was younger. Yeah, sure, I've probably seen them, but I did. It's whatever. I think, but it's got a key place in my heart simply because with me and my friends, we had so many memories with this film, and it just on top of all the actual key rewatching it now again, all the actual issues it sort of tackles. It tackles depression, friendship, and growing up. And growing up with the film makes it even more impactful for me, and that's why I think the issues, not issues, but the subjects it tackles are much more relatable. So it makes the film more impactful for me. Plus, I think the comedy is great.
It is good. It is really good comedy. But for me, it's got to be Hot Fuzz. Just picture every cop film you've ever seen, and then take that and throw it all out the window. It's set in a quaint little English town, the most English town you could ever imagine, and you kind of just go in thinking, well, it's just a cop movie. And then it flips it all on its head. Everything's boring in this town until it isn't. And I think the key with this film is it's asking a bigger question than perhaps the other two movies are. How far are rich people willing to go to accomplish what they want?
So, should we go first act?
Yeah, first act.
I think there's a thing about the first act where, there's a few scenes in there where, and the scene, I realised that the scene just before the middle act kicks off in TheWorld'sEnd is a scene where it shows Pete talking about, the I can't remember his name, but I think it was
the bully.
Yeah, the bully, and it's a really powerful, especially for me.
I completely understand. Peter has. Whew.
Yeah, Peter's got everyone. I think the only person really who doesn't have. I'll say, I'll wait till the end. We'll get to conclusion for that. Okay, so first act. I'll kick off with this one.
Okay.
I think. Oh, this might actually be a lot of back and forth. This is going to be a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, so first act is we get Gary going to everyone. He goes to Pete first after a little bit of light stalking. He goes to Pete first, and he's asked. He's like, "Come on, let's get the band back together. It seems like Pete is actually he's a very shy lad.
Yeah.
He is. But it seems like he really did miss seeing Gary. Even though it was a bit of a, he's still missing him because it's an old high school mate. And Pete's the easiest one to be like, you come in.
Yeah, if he can get Pete on board, then he's got a chance of getting the others on board.
Yeah. And then the next person he goes to see is Stephen, who's the helmet without an helmet.
It's a good line.
Yeah. So there is actually a little joke that goes on throughout this as well. It's like Pete asks him towards the end. It's like, is everyone coming? And Gary's like, yeah, everyone. And then Pete goes, even Andy. And then it cuts to going to Steve. It shows there's a little friction between Steve and Gary. Quite a lot of friction. Because they were just very competitive, and you find out that like Gary apparently sold Pete's guitar. Gary had actually sold Steven's guitar for drugs. And it's like, Gary, no, you're starting to become worse. But then there's a running joke again. It's like, even Andy's coming. And this conversation between Steve and Gary as well shows that Gary avoids confrontation, like arguments, by it's like I can't remember exactly what Steven says, but Gary goes, I've always wondered what that thing above the door is, just to completely throw off the subject they were just talking about. So you get into that, you're learning more about Gary as he keeps going to these people. And then you get to Oliver. Same again. Oliver's just like, will you leave? He actually ruins a sale for Oliver. So
that is a great scene, though.
Yeah.
How angry he gets at the price of that house.
Yeah. Fuck! How much is the selling for? 1.2 mil. Fuck off! Hi. And then the next scene is the Andy scene. And this is where you find out just how like manipulative Gary is. Properly anyway, because he goes in, and you can tell that Andy is not happy to see Gary.
Yeah.
It's like, sir, you've got a friend here to see you, and he just looks at you. No, I don't. It's like, oh no.
Surely Andy would have just had him escorted out of the building if he hated him that much.
You see, I don't think it's that he hates him. I think it's that it can only spell trouble, but he's still willing to hear an old friend out. I think Andy,
he's still, deep down, he's still his friend.
He still loves him.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't know, And it's the fact that I think Gary to him reminds him of drinking, and obviously being 16 years sober, everything.
Yeah.
But then you have this little scene, they're talking, and Andy does actually go, leave, get out, Yeah. And then that's when Gary does his whole thing. It's like 600, was it? Places that down. And fearing that wasn't enough, he turns around and goes, oh yeah, Mum died. It's like, and you already realise that probably isn't true.
Yeah, it kind of shows Gary is willing to do anything to get what he wants.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't care about... I mean, he cares about other people, just perhaps he's looking out for number one, really. No matter what.
He is more all of us. And they keep diving into that throughout the film. We'll come back to because the first act of World's End is sort of split into two halves. Mm-hmm. We'll get back to the second half after we'll talk about Hot Fuzz for a bit. So, give you a chance to try and convince me.
So, the first act of Hot Fuzz, I'm going to say it starts probably as he gets into Sanford. Maybe showing him getting into Sanford with the nice scenes of his phone signal dropping constantly, showing him waiting for his train. I quite like that because it does show he's going into the middle of nowhere. He is, he's essentially lost. And then he gets there. I really, really like the scene in the hotel. I'm here to check in, but you've always been here. It kind of throws the viewer off. Maybe for a second, maybe they're going, "Oh God, is this a horror movie?" Because it could appear that way. Because their last movie, Shaun of the Dead, it was a scary movie to some people. Some people, just the mention of zombies being in a movie is enough to go, nope, that's it, I'm out.
He arrives outside the hotel under a light.
Yeah, it makes you, it throws you into this idea, oh God, this is a scary movie. Then suddenly it flips it on its head. Oh, it's okay, it's not. It's all meant to be a joke. And I love the scene with the crossword, fascist, hack. It's like trying to show those true colours without really giving it away.
Yeah.
And showing him going through Sandford as well after that, like when he goes into the pub and immediately his brain's on the job, arrest everybody. They're all minors. I think
there's a good comedy in there as well. What wines do you have? We got red. We got white.
White.
And obviously, yeah.
I love that scene with him arresting all the youths, well, chucking them out to begin with, because it just shows you who Nicholas is. It shows you the law is the law to him. Nothing is higher than the law to him. It doesn't matter anything else. That's who he is. And it sort of shows that his ex-girlfriend was right. He can't switch off. It makes you kind of feel a bit sorry for him in a way, that he's in a pub, he can't enjoy himself. And it shows that he's ruined other people's day. The pub aren't going to make any money.
He completely broke the community, basically, didn't he?
Yeah. He's gone in there, one man, and ruined a village community in a day. It shows you that's how much he cares about the law, which it immediately shows him as an outcast. The scene after he's thrown everybody out of the pub and he's there on his own, essentially, and everyone and the landlords are looking at him like,
yeah, and he's enjoying his drink more than he did before he walked in.
It immediately shows he's an outcast. He doesn't belong here. We need rid of him. Which obviously is what they want to do eventually.
I think, obviously, that's where you meet Danny as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, not knowing the
importance. It's a great introduction scene for Danny.
Yes. I think they're both really strong. Both really strong. Because it's both about Simon Pegg's character, pretty much. Which is fine. He helped, co-write and everything.
Yeah.
And he's a great actor. It is mainly all about his character, so because it's not too much to delve into with it. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack and everything, but I mean, it's about the one character.
Yeah. They're trying to get you into his headspace.
So both the first parts of the first act are really good. I think they're both on a par with each other. How do you argue that you get both motivations immediately? You understand the headspace and the complete person that you're watching, and they both sort of wink to what's going on in both their lives, even more.
And neither first act really gives anything away yet.
But you learn so much.
They're both trying to lead you down one route whilst simultaneously carving another one for you. I really like that about Edgar Wright. Just the way he directs, he always sends you down one way and makes you go.
So I've got massive praise. I don't know if you. I'll say it in the conclusion. But basically, there's a massive thing in The World's End that's really, really clever by Edgar Wright. I'll get to that obviously later on. Okay, so you carry on. We'll do second half of first act. You carry on.
So here, this has to be Hot Fuzz, because you've got an incredible scene with him finally arresting all the teenagers and Danny, and he immediately goes into the police station. Oh, when do you start? Tomorrow. And it makes paperwork look cool. How can anybody make paperwork look cool? It's insane. And it's reinforcing the fact how dedicated Nicholas is to the service. You can't call it the Force. And then after that, you get the introduction of all the other characters. And I really like the way that they introduce, what's his name? Tony Fisher, that's it. The way that Tony Fisher's introduced, it shows a whiteboard behind him showing all these character traits of what he's actually like. And he can't see this himself, which I find hilarious. Like, Tony's a very interesting character.
Tony's good. I do like Tony.
Yeah.
What you said.
Yeah, what he said. But I do have a bit of an issue, actually. I'd imagine that Nicholas would be a lot more questionative as to how Danny got off scot-free with what he did. Like, yes, he's a cop, but he still broke the law. You know, he still needs to be, punished. And buying ice cream isn't a punishment for breaking the law.
Maybe I need chunky monkey for the rest of the month. Oh, Dad!
I
think my
Nicholas
favourite
would be a lot more questionative.
I don't know if he would, because the thing is with that is that obviously Danny's dad, remember his name?
No. I can't remember
his name.
It's not the chief.
Yeah. Is it Bill? Pack it in, Bill, you daft bastard.
Yeah.
Something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
But either way, I think it's because he's enforcing his status over Sergeant.
Yeah.
So you can't. It's like you couldn't argue with the chief commissioner. Mm-hmm. And it's like this is basically the chief commissioner of this area.
It's the same thing. You can't argue with those who are above you, no matter how much you want to.
I guess. Yeah, I can see why you have a problem with it.
Yeah, I also have a problem with Simon Skinner when Nicholas is going for his run, and Simon Skinner comes up next to him. He's like, "Lock me up! I'm a slasher." It's like, yes, it's funny, but why would he want to come off as creepy? Because he must know that that's the vibe he's giving immediately to Nicholas, that I'm creepy, I'm the one to look out for. And if they're trying to keep this whole for the greater good thing under wraps, he's not doing a good job. Unless maybe they've all told him to do that because he's the sacrificial lamb. If anything goes wrong, he gets locked up, we're all happy.
I thought of that in a way of maybe Skinner didn't expect Angel to be around that long.
Maybe, yeah. Or maybe he thought that he'd be on his side.
Yeah.
But still, it still comes off as odd to me because, if it was me in that situation, I'd have slowly eased into that. If I was in Simon Skinner's shoes there, you'd have slowly eased into the idea it's all for the greater good.
try and indoctrinate Angel.
Yeah, like, you can surely by his previous night you'd be able to tell this is going to be a hard nut to crack. Do it slowly. Because they definitely want him on board. They wouldn't invite him to the first meeting otherwise. Even though it's not one of their cult meetings, it's still...
The NWA.
Yeah. They're still kind of showing him inside, just a little bit, just so they can test the waters. They obviously want him there. So, going full on, it's all for the greater good immediately from Skinner, it's not really the best strategy.
Some Hot Fuzz does do well in all that little, because obviously after that running scene as well, you get him with Danny doing the round. Something I will give to Hot Fuzz for that is showing how tight knit everything is. Obviously, everybody's got a radio and stuff like that. I will say as well that's I just mentioned it. It's a bit later on, but the whole NWA thing. It's such good name choice by Edgar and this Simon Pegg, because it shows how sort of like out of touch and not on that is for a small wide community to be like. It's clever. It's clever.
Yeah. I don't know. Hot Fuzz at this point, it's not really showing you too much yet. It's still at this point it's still kind of still essentially in the intro, really.
See, the second act of World's End, I think it staged just as strong as it was in the intro. So I've properly met all the characters now, and it doesn't put you with Gary for a little bit. After he met Andy, it doesn't put you with Gary for a little bit. It has all four of them actually meeting without Gary.
Yeah, and you find that's a scene that was needed, definitely.
You find out that they're all there because they still do care about Gary, even though they don't want to be there. They're doing it for all time's sake.
Yeah.
Andy's obviously done it because he feels bad. Peter, Stephen, and Oliver were all a bit easier to convince because once they heard Andy was coming, that was it.
Yeah.
And then it then shows them obviously waiting for Gary, who was late by an hour, and it shows again that Gary feels like he can't be wrong. It's like, you said you'd be here at 4. You said you'd be here at 3. It's now 4. It's like, yeah, 3 to 4. Gary, whether your problem, Gary, you're never wrong.
Yeah, he doesn't see that as a problem. It is very nice.
He turns around again. He goes like, "How's that a problem?" It's like, Gary. And then you have Peter asking him. It's like, this looks like the car I sold you. It's like, it is. And then you get this really good, quite like powerful acting from just Simon Pegg, basically rhyming off all the things he's had to replace. So it shows you that he's stuck in the past. He's not replacing anything.
Yeah.
Even apart,
he will drive that car forever.
Yeah. Then you have the scene on the motorway. Find out. You kind of see Andy and everyone else sort of getting into it a bit with the song that's on.
Yeah.
And then Stephen goes to Gary. He's like, I put this on tape for you, but way back in 1998 or whatever it was. It's like, yeah, it's the same one. It's like, you are? It's like, yeah, it's it. It's like, where did you find that? It was in the tape player. Like, so that they all shut down again then.
Yeah, like, they all go, oh, something's off here.
Yeah, and then it shows Gary is like, how much of Gary is a danger to himself because he just swerves because he needs the toilet.
Yeah.
Swerves in front of a truck. He don't care about anybody else in the car. It's all about him.
It shows you his character. In just a swerve. It's very clever.
Yeah, and then you get to the gas station, petrol station, stuff like that. You can call it, I don't care. And you find out a little bit about the other characters. You find out about what they actually do, their jobs, how successful they are, compared to Gary, who is then sat across the way playing Need for Speed.
Yeah.
And he was going to the toilet.
I do like that scene as well, because they're all saying, if it is a we, and they go,
yeah,
and then
all
Peter's,
of it, yeah.
And then Peter's like, a poo. It shows how innocent Peter is.
So then they're back on the road, and we'll skip forward a bit. We get to the hotel, and we have this again. I think this might be Simon Pegg's best act, because he has a lot of monologues in this film.
Yeah, he does.
And then this monologue about all the pubs, where he's just, saying what he's doing and how it starts off with, it's like, will you have dinner here with us, dear? And then he's like, no. He's basically just like, no, but he has to go on this massive grand spiel about it.
Yeah.
And, he names off all the pubs and everything. And then it cuts back to the lady again, like, really confused. And then we get to the first pub, and it's a franchise pub. It's not, but the difference here is that Gary walks in, and he goes on about how it looks the same and stuff, and all the others are like, it's been Starbucks, mate.
Yeah.
That's Steve does it, but Gary doesn't notice it at all. But he lets the nostalgia get to him, but the others don't. Again, differentiates them. It shows, obviously, he's got a really funny scene. It's like, he goes off on another little tangent about what beer he wants, and the guy's just like, "We've got Foster's, mate, or Crown and Glory."
It's beer.
Yeah. So they sit down. No, and then Andy's like, "No, I won't have one. I'll have a water." What? And then it cuts. It's like, I can't believe a man of your stature sat here drinking fucking rain.
I mean, if Andy's intending on drinking a pint of water in every pub, my God, he is going to need the toilet constantly.
Yeah, but again, this actually leads to something later on. It says, "Tell you what, Gary, standing here with a bunch of sweaty, ugly men and order a pint of water, that takes balls." And that actually leads to something later on in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's a good little scene. Sorts it all out for them, yeah. Second pub is where we meet Sam. There's a nice little joke about, Gary thinking they're gonna shag, and he goes, "Out of order."
That is nice. That needs to be a meme. It really does. The him holding the out of order sign over his mouth. That needs to be a meme. Can't believe it's not already.
We'll have a look into that. And then, obviously, this is the importance of the scene mainly is showing the friction between Gary, Stephen, and Sam. Because obviously, Stephen actually likes Sam. Gary just won't. They explain it a bit later on, but the important character here is a new character, Sam.
Yeah.
Sorted. Then we get to the famous cock. And
great name for a pub.
Yeah. Gary's livid. He can't have a drink because he gets kicked out of this one. And then it shows how desperate he is to have a drink in every pub, because he literally takes. You don't know how long they've been sat there. You don't know who's drank out of them.
That is.
Chugs them.
Oh.
And then we get to just before the middle act. We get to the one of the probably, if not the best scene in the film. Where we have the bully meet Stephen, and the bully meet Peter. It's at 32:14, and they're all reminiscing really nicely here. You have the marmalade sandwich that they all talk about. You have a laugh about that. You find out that Peter actually got off with one of them when he was younger. You find all that out, and then obviously, the bully comes over. He has to see us Peter. Just his eyes, tragic. It's like Gary's just like, "Ego, take it, mate." And then Peter goes on this lovely but sad like little tangent about how he used to beat him, make him miss days at school. Like he dislocated the guy's eyeball, like Peter's eyeball, hit by him. And then the thing about it all is that like, it's not the fact that he of all that he didn't have. It's that the fact that right then, right here, he didn't notice me. And it's like, Peter, no. But the cool bit just before that is obviously he didn't want to talk about it, but Gary, he says, "No, Pete, you really should talk about it because holding past trauma can cause mental issues, like or anything or something like that." And then you see him sort of like away. It hints to the others that he's been in rehab, but they don't know that yet. That's it's something that if you look at it, it's like
I think
he's really.
I think as well it shows that he cares. He cares enough about his friends that he wants Peter to talk about it. But at the same time, he's still looking out for number one because he leaves immediately. He can't deal with the stress of hearing it.
He leaves immediately and then comes back, slams down shots, and that's when Andy's like, "You're a prick, mate."
Yeah.
Andy's had enough of it. He literally has enough of everything, Gary's trying to sell. Gary tries being like, "Oh, come on, what we're here as mates." It's like, no, Peter's just said about something that clearly affected him. Gary tries again, and it's like, I thought we were, no, he goes, but Mum died. And again, trying to guilt trip his friends, his best mates, trying to guilt trip him again. And Andy, it's like, "I'm all very sorry, but now it's time to go home." And then obviously you get Gary being upset. It's like, "I thought we were home," which sounded sincere. That was I think that's the first sincere thing we probably heard him say the entire film.
Yeah, there's not much sincerity out of Gary King.
No, but that scene, I think that little bit from him is like, "I thought we were home." I think that was his most sincere thing he'd said all film. And then obviously he leaves to go to the bathroom. And you have his mates actually, again, feeling bad for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the phone rings, and Andy picks it up, and it's his mum.
Yeah.
It's like...
He really is his own worst enemy.
Yeah. I've got the timestamp for that, if you need it at the point. So I think you're going to have to agree with me here and say that the first act is better.
Yeah, you've got me. The first act of The World's End is better. There's more going on. There's more room for everything to breathe. It doesn't have to introduce more characters apart from one. So it's an easier transition into the first act, really.
But I'm gonna change your mind.
No, you aren't changing my mind. I'm definitely changing your mind.
So okay, we'll start with the intros to those films because we both know Edgar Wright is a genius.
He is.
He's a genius director. He's everything about him's brilliant. And something I noticed watching all three, he opens these three films all in a very similar way.
Yeah.
Tell me what you prefer about Hot Fuzz opening to World's End.
Well, this is actually a point where I'm going to have to give it to you because I think that Hot Fuzz's opening, it can be a bit full on. If somebody's never watched the movie before, it's a bit bam, 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 all in your face at once. And it's a bit hard to digest.
God forbid you be American.
Yeah.
It'd be even harder.
Yeah. It's a difficult beginning, but once you're in and you see him enter that first room and you get the quaint little Britishness, even though it's in London still, there's still that quaint Britishness there. You're like, oh, now this is good. This is good.
It's a very, I will say, it's a very idyllic like town, isn't it? It's like if you think British town or countryside, that's what you think.
Yeah.
you think of Newton Haven. Not Newton Haven, sorry.
Sanford.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, you could think of Newton Haven, but you're gonna have a bit of an issue thinking of Newton Haven.
Yeah. Sanford. Welcome to Sanford. Yeah.
So, what is it about the World's End opening that you prefer? Because I kind of do agree
intro
with it,
and The World's End literally defines the rest of the film. It spells out the entire film for you before you even realise it. It's when, on the second viewing, that's what's good about it, right? On the second viewing, you realise it's like, oh my god. It's literally, he tells you everything that's going to happen without even you knowing.
Yeah. And
it does it perfectly in The World's End. Because you immediately get into everyone's lives. It shows you, Peter's rich, Oliver's really intelligent. Andy and Gary are really, really close friends, and then Steve and Gary have this competitive friendship. You get all that immediately, and then it does immediately show that Gary's a bit of a prick. Because he is. Gary is, okay, but the thing about Gary is, even though he shouldn't be likable, he has this way of talking, and it shows you this, because it's all him doing the dialogue in the beginning, over like their lives, enjoying how they're young and doing the pub crawl and everything. And then it cuts to him in the little AA meeting, and even though he should be this unlikable character because he's just got into your head immediately, and he just comes across as somebody you'd meet and you could get along with. Yeah. And then the plot kicks off by one random ass guy, just going, "You feel disappointed?" And it's like, "Oh, that." And it's like, "You didn't finish it," and then that's it. That's Gary, like, "Oh no."
Yeah, that's the kick in the head that he's missed something his entire life and he's not even realised it.
Yeah, and then so that was the intro, and then it's the title screen intro into all their grown-up lives. And I mean, I'm dragging this out, but this goes on for maybe 5 minutes, the whole intro, properly. It's and a long one. You immediately know everybody's headspace. You realise that Gary can't move on, whereas everyone else has done really well. They're quite successful. Peter is nearly partner to the showroom, his dad's showroom, and he's you don't know what job he does yet, but he's high up. He's got his own office, a corner office, nice, glass screens.
Very nice office.
Steve is a builder, a really successful builder. I think he's a contractor builder, isn't he?
I think he's meant to be like a site manager or something, not.
Yeah. Something along that. Well, he owned his own business at one point. I know that. We find that out later on. And then you see that Oliver's doing property, which good. And then there's Gary just sort of stuck. Yeah. In a little flat.
It is a very nice scene. It really is.
Yeah, that's why I think that intro. The intro is just. Even though in Hot Fuzz, I'll give it you know how Nicholas Angel is immediately, but you don't really learn about anyone else.
No. I mean, how could you though? All the other characters aren't introduced yet.
Yeah, but that's why I think World's End does it better, is because it has that many characters and it does them all justice. In like that intro.
It has more characters to deal with as well, though. Whereas Hot Fuzz, there's only really 2 characters you care about for quite a while.
Something I will give Hot Fuzz for its intro, though, is that it is a funnier intro.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. It's definitely funnier.
ArguMovies.
I mean, just the fact that it became a meme, it's got to be funnier.
Yeah. I'll give the intro that it's funnier, but I think the actual, in terms of story, that World's End hits all the beats it needs to better.
Hot Fuzz to me has got a much better story than The World's End. Absolutely.
Well, I think we'll do story overall towards the end. But let's get into like middle act.
Okay.
So middle act for World's End, for Hot Fuzz will start.
Right. Middle act for Hot Fuzz. This is where you're starting to work out, okay, things aren't exactly as they seem here. Something's going on, and you immediately detect, right, it's Skinner. It's got to be Skinner. I mean, who else could it be? But you're slowly starting to think, maybe them, actually. Maybe that person. Maybe he's in cahoots with somebody else. Something's going on here. Whereas I'd say it's a stronger middle than the World's End. Much stronger, to be honest. Because it feels like it's still going somewhere. There's still more to be explored. The fact that you've got Skinner showing up at all these murders, and he's seen as a bit of a creep, a bit weird. Everyone else in the police doesn't believe Nicholas, apart from Danny. You're getting that, so there's sort of two sides to it, and I find there's more comedy involved with that middle as well than in The World's End, because you've got the Andys being absolutely hilarious. They are comedy gold. Just the line, I checked my watch, I should have been in the pub. It gets me every single time. The church scene, fantastic. It's just a stronger middle. And I know that I'm going to beat you on this one.
Well, so I think where the middle act really kicks off for World's End is the moment at the which pub is it? Let me just check. The moment at the cross hands where they have their first fight scene with the teens.
Yes.
So Gary's all mad, upset. The lads want to go home. It's not what he wanted. So he's going through all that trauma. Well, not trauma. He's been a bit of a pansy, to be fair. But he's going through all that, and then between, and this is halfway into the film. It's at 35 minutes. I've read down the time for it. Between 35 minutes and 13:29, the action scene that follows Gary is brilliant. You get into his headspace again, shows what is really bothering him, and then he decides to try and take out this frustration because he still feels like a teenager. He tries to take out this frustration on another kid, and then the fight kicks off, and that's when, even before that, you didn't actually feel like anything was wrong. Apart from maybe the pubs being the same, everybody knows franchising happens, so it's like, okay, that's fine. You don't actually think anything's wrong. And then the twist happens where this fucking kid starts flipping about and just being completely like weird, and then you see his head pop.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, it's a alien movie of some sorts. Or robot movie of some sorts. And then that's when Andy storms in, and you've just seen the scene where he's found that his mum's still alive. Gary's mum's still alive. So Andy is absolutely livid, and he storms in without any form of doesn't look at his surroundings. All he cares about is Gary's incessant lying, consistent, bad, awful human being lying, and then the others come in, follow him in, and obviously see the fact that Gary is holding a corpse. And from here, they have another really good action scene. With I think the CGI in this film, it probably had a bit of a better budget, but I think the CGI is better. And Hot Fuzz didn't really use too much either.
Yeah. None of these movies really push the boat out of CGI. They used it where they had to.
yeah, but the CGI in the World's End, because it did need a bit more of it. For example, like when that kid gets kicked into the sink, he splits.
Yeah,
that's a clever paint out. Yeah, and then from there, they have the little argument about how to act, and this scene is what kicks off the rest of the film properly, because they're like they can't leave because they've got to listen to Gary because he is in a way right here.
Yeah.
Because if they suddenly just up and left,
yeah, they're going to suspect.
Also, they're on their fourth? Yeah, they're on the fourth pint here, and Gary's down the queue. Andy is not yet drank, and the other three have. And then this scene as well is what kicks Andy off to drinking, because Andy hates having to agree with Gary so much. It leads him to break his 16 years sober. That on top of the stress. And I think Andy's the best character in this film.
Yeah,
as much as I love Gary,
absolutely.
Andy is the best. He's the heart of everything.
He goes on a big journey, does Andy.
Yeah. And this kicks off, like I say, this properly kicks off the rest of the film. And then it's following them going to the next film, the next pub, The Good Companion. And the blanks are really creepy, like they're just staring at them, and you get into the atmosphere gets to you. So, and then they're drinking faster as well. So they literally neck the pints when they get out. Andy's just done 5 shots. I can only assume it was either vodka or tequila. It was a pure.
It's something like that.
And then they get to the next pub and immediately all down the next drinks again. And then they get to pub 6, and that's where there's a lot condensed into this middle act.
Yeah.
Because pub 6 again, you get this is where Oliver changes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where they meet the Reverend Green to ask him about this is pub number 6. They meet Reverend Green, who used to sell drugs, and his mates. And Oliver just popped to the loo. So they asked the Reverend Green, what's going on, because they recognise that he's not a blank. And then, obviously, the Reverend Green tells him, they're not robots. Do you know what robot means, etc., etc. And so it is human. And then, they have this whole little thing. The Reverend Green's like, shut up, you're going to get me in trouble. And obviously, that's when you see Reverend Green pass Oliver, and he goes into the toilet. It's like, wait, he's just being told to go somewhere. And this is where he gets like the first hint of like, oh, Oliver's not Oliver anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's something you don't realise until the second viewing, unless you're a smart ass.
Unless you watch movies like we do.
Yeah. And then that's a good way to cover like the middle act. And then pub 7 is basically them being like the network is trying to indoctrinate them, because pub 7 is where this bartender repeats literally everything Gary said at the beginning of the film in the first pub, and then they're also bladdered that they sort of don't realise it. I think that it's a solid middle act, I think, because it doesn't shy away. It's not trying to be a mystery. Whereas obviously Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, Hot Fuzz has to keep the mystery going.
They've got to make it seem like Angel is losing his mind.
Yeah. Hot Fuzz, I'd say, has a harder middle to deal with. Just the fact that it's got to keep this mystery going for not only the viewer, but for Nicholas as well. It has more to juggle. But with saying that, though, I would say that The World's End, has a bit of an odd middle. because it's kind of up down in terms of
It
what's
doesn't,
going
right?
on.
Yeah, you know, I think you do have this one because I was just thinking about it. It doesn't. The middle of World's End. I think the middle is the funniest bit of the world, like
Yes.
the funniest bits of the World End, apart from that one little scene at the end,
Yeah.
when showering at the network. But other than that, I think it's the funniest bit of the film because this is where it's like all batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Got to sort of like not give themselves away, so they can't really tackle any of the issues that I like.
Mhm.
Whereas obviously, Hot Fuzz, they're slowly unraveling Nicholas, and
Yeah.
it makes you really feel bad for him. And it's like even Danny is like, "What if it were accidents though?" It's like, no, I'm so sorry, Nicholas.
It's the Hot Fuzz does make you start to feel sorry for Nicholas, and I kind of really relate to Nicholas a lot of the time in a lot of the film. Just the fact that he's never believed for everything. Like, I've been in work situations at previous jobs where you just never believe no matter what you do, and it drives you mad when you know you're telling the truth.
Yeah, it also at that point though, even though I think you've seen Nicholas see one of them at this point, haven't you? I'm not sure.
You see Nicholas sees a murder,
but he doesn't see the float, does he?
No.
Yeah. So even though we do know that something's going on, like we've seen it, you're still there. Like, could it be like the first time you? It's like, could Nicholas be imagining them? They still sow that sort of doubt into your head.
Yeah, the fact that everyone's cloaked could be a situation like The World's End where nothing's real. It's all in his own head. I'm not saying that The World's End is all in Gary's head. What I'm saying is that there's something bigger at play than what appears.
I'll give it to Hot Fuzz. The middle.
Hot Fuzz it's got a bigger middle to deal with.
Do you want to know what Hot Fuzz does? Mm-hmm. Hot Fuzz makes up for its intro in the middle act, and World's End has its intro for Hot Fuzz in the middle.
Yeah.
I think they swap.
Yeah, the World's End throws quite a bit at the wall, trying to. Yeah. Which it feels like The World's End takes too long to get going, and then suddenly it gets going, and then suddenly the brakes are on. It's a bit like a roller coaster that can't make its mind up. The World's End to me.
I don't know. I think the pacing's fine. I'm okay with pacing.
It must just be me. I must just be picky.
I'd say I've seen worse pacing in other films.
Yes, there's definitely worse pacing in other movies. Definitely.
And there are. I will say there are parts in Hot Fuzz where I stare a bit like I want to get to the good bit.
Yeah. There are definitely a couple of moments in Hot Fuzz.
But there's always time in World's End where I watch it. It's like there's only one bit where it's a massive exposition done, mm-hmm. And they're like, all right, can we just? But it's only one little scene. There isn't anything really like that in. Well, there is an exposition done, but it's needed. Yeah. It's when, the big twist in Hot Fuzz.
For the greater good.
Yeah. Okay. I'll the greater good. I'll give it you for I'll give it you for the middle act of Hot Fuzz. So now, obviously, final act.
Okay.
Well, yeah, final act and then finale and then conclusion. So, do you want to start final act or?
Right. So, I would say that around here we're looking at in Hot Fuzz, we're looking at around the time that Nicholas is starting to work out what's going on. just one quick mention here. Of course, Skinner drives a Jag. What else would he drive? Of course, he drives a Jag.
Immediately. Damn it, yeah, I was about to say I immediately thought of a Jag.
Which, that's a knock against The World's End, because it's the only movie without a Jag out of the 3 films. So, you know, it's missing the all-important Jag.
But it's in the name of not promoting drink driving.
Yeah, true.
They try their hardest throughout the entire film until it gets to the end where it's all fucked. They try their hardest not to promote drink driving.
Yeah, they really do. That's really good of them, actually. So, I would say...
Although, at that, Gary was probably coked up when he drove them to New Haven. But just skip out that little detail.
Right, so I'd say final act here. We're looking at around the time that just before, just as it's Danny's birthday, actually.
Yeah.
So
we've seen the church scene.
We've seen the church scene. We've seen Tim Messenger get killed, which, my God, that's gruesome.
Danny really started to doubt Nicholas.
Yeah, everybody doubts Nicholas now. Nobody's on his side. And
you have that excellent scene of Danny's Nicholas in the rain. And it's like,
yeah,
you know what? Maybe your girlfriend was right. You know how to switch off.
Yeah,
all that.
It's a fantastic scene because it makes you feel for Danny. It makes you, you know, suddenly you're no longer in Nicholas's shoes. You're in Danny's shoes now. And
again, proving Nick Frost is the heart of these movies.
Yeah, Nick Frost. He doesn't get enough
as much praise.
Yeah, as much praise. And he really deserves it because he's the one that keeps all the movies grounded. I found, apart from Shaun of the Dead, where he plays the complete opposite sort of character.
Yeah.
But in these 2 movies, he's sort of your viewpoint into this world. So we get to the birthday scene, and we get Nicholas suddenly feeling, oh God, I'm a terrible person. And he goes to get him a peace lily, because obviously, what else would he get him? This is Nicholas Angel we're talking about.
And I think I'll give Hot Fuzz this. It's good character development, Nicholas, because he felt so bad about being invested in his work again that it feels like this is the first time he's stopped his work to go get something for his friend.
Yeah, he's changing. He's learning. He's becoming a human and not a robot.
Blank.
No, but I do have a little bit of an issue though with him going to get the peace lily. Nicholas is such a stickler for the rules that he wouldn't have put his sirens on to go get the peace lily. Although perhaps, as you said, it could be shown as character development. He's finally seeing people as just as worth as his job. And then obviously we get back after the scene where, you know, I've forgotten her name, where she gets stabbed with her shears.
Don't know it. Leslie Tiller.
Leslie Tiller, that's it. That
got a really nice monologue from Leslie.
Yes, a really nice monologue because she's slowly giving everything away without giving anything away. It's very good. I do have a bit of an issue with this as well, though. When the hooded figure runs,
they don't need to argue against your. Oh, you're. Oh, hey,
I'm arguing against myself. It's still the stronger. It's still the stronger movie. I just have a few gripes. So the hooded figure runs, and they cut their leg on the greenhouse, don't they? And they leave a trail of blood. Can't that be checked for forensics? But obviously, the chief inspector won't allow that because he's in charge, and he's actually part of the NWA. He's in charge of everything, really.
So it's not really. It's even though it's a point that could be made, it's still like it's not relevant because it wouldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, also, that's a brutal death scene as well.
Yeah,
it's a really
is.
brutal death.
Like, that
shears to the
no, and the blood splat is nasty, very nasty way to go.
That's something that Hot Fuzz has over World's End. The effect, not the CGI, but the actual like death effects are a lot better in World's End. It's literally just that, you know.
It feels they kind of knew they had the CGI to do it in the World's End.
Yeah. The problem with the World's End is, even though it doesn't show it, it's the implication later on when it tells you what happens to them. It's like, you never see. You don't need to. But you've got these other two films behind.
Yeah, it would be nice to have seen it once.
Yeah, in Shaun of the Dead, you see a guy get ripped in half. You know. In Hot Fuzz, you've got the shears to the neck. You've got a literal church spire falling on someone's head.
Yeah,
so it's not like they're shy to show that.
No, they were just taking the World's End in a different direction, weren't
they?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
As well, you get to see Nicholas give up on everything, which I really like. You get to see a man at the end of his tether. He's lost everything. You know, nobody believes him. He's lost his friends. He's lost everything. And it's really nice to see a character who was so, I am the law is everything, finally, whatever. It's nice to see that, but then again, after that, when he goes, he gets the epiphany, no, I can't give up, I need to keep doing this. It's really nice to see that in a film, because it's kind of like a subtle nod to everybody else. Don't give up, you can do it, it's fine.
Yeah. This is where he gets back to Danny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So then, after him and Danny have agreed they're going to work the case together, we get the scene back at the hotel where we get Yarp attempt to kill Nicholas. That's a really good scene. The fight scene in there, they've got no room to work in, but the choreography is fantastic because they've got no room, and Yarp is such a big guy that it must have made everything hard, so I commend them tremendously for that. I like the way that it's done as well. Nicholas doesn't want to really hurt him because he doesn't want to hurt anybody, but he will throw his plant on him to get away, essentially.
The fact that he's willing to break his peace lily.
Yeah, he's willing to break his peace lily to live. And Simon Pegg does a really good job.
Yeah.
He really does. The look on his face is fantastic. Yarp?
Yeah.
Yarp?
Good.
So then we get to the scene where he finally confronts the NWA, and they're all there, and they finally admit what they've done, and the reasons for murder. It makes you think they can't really have murdered them over that, because they're such minuscule things. Like, oh, he couldn't spell properly. Oh, he was a terrible actor. She had an annoying laugh. If we can't have her, nobody can.
It was the other ones, weren't it? That, it was like the massive mansion guy, the guy who built all the mansions.
Yeah,
you sort of understand that.
Yeah, he's kind of the only one where you go, well, they had a. Well, I don't want to say a proper reason to murder someone because there's no proper reason to murder somebody, but they had much more of a motive than she had an annoying laugh.
Yeah.
And then it really, that scene really shows that these people they're beyond saving. They're proper crazy. Nothing matters to them apart from the best village. Yeah, poor Nicholas, because he's gone in. Great. Yeah, he's gone into this with, I have real reason that you guys did this. There's proper motives. I've studied this like a proper police officer. proper copper, proper work, and they just shoot him all down. No, we didn't do it because of that. So once again, he breaks again.
Yeah, he literally, he does just straight. You can hear it in his voice, can't you? He's like, how can that be for the greater good? It's like, oh
yeah.
no.
And then you get the scene with Danny and stabbing him after Nicholas has gone through the tunnels, and he has those whole revelations.
Yeah, and even then, you see that, and it's that moment. Before then, you see all the other corpses as well.
Mm-hmm.
You see the old police officer that Nicholas replaced.
Yeah, Popwell.
And you realise that, and even that you realise even more. They're like, they killed a man for being a man.
Yeah.
And they killed those kids. No, wait, they killed the fuck ugly guy.
Yeah.
They killed him as well. It's like, oh jeez. And then the revelation that you wouldn't think it, but they have Danny come out and stab him.
Yeah.
And you're there like,
for quite a while you think, no, Danny,
you were in on it. And then it's running through your mind, and you're thinking, I mean, Danny, he could have been just playing the part of being an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many points, and you try and go over it in your head.
You're kind of upset at Danny for what he's done.
You're as confused as Nicholas are.
But as well, if you do watch it, you kind of see that Danny puts the notebook into Nicholas's chest pocket, and then if you think about that, you suddenly go, oh wait, because
you wonder how long. Yeah,
Danny obviously had a bigger plan than he was letting on.
It shows that he's not as quick as he seems.
Yeah, he's actually quite an intelligent guy. Then you get the scene with Nicholas leaving Sanford, which it's heartbreaking. This has broken this man. He knows all the information of this case, but there's nothing he can do. Because I imagine as he's driving back to London, he's thinking in his head, wait, I've promised that I'm going to bring the London police force here. How am I going to do that? They're not going to believe me. Who are they going to believe? Me, a random sergeant, who they all don't like anyway, or the chief of police of Sanford? I'm out of options here. And what you can see it on his face. He's thinking constantly, how am I going to explain it or any of this? How am I going to explain that I'm back? And the scene when he gets into the services, and suddenly the cogs start turning. I need to do something about this myself. Yeah, he realizes he's all on his own. He's got to sort this himself. He becomes who he is again. He remembers who he is. The law is the law. It must be followed. He remembers who he is, and everything's suddenly right again.
So just before we get into what is the best scene of your film?
The best scene of my film. Ooh.
I do think this little, because the next up is the ultimate, the massive conflict.
Yeah.
So before we get to that, because that scene is amazing. So in World's End, I think the lead up to the finale really works. I do have some issues myself. So after the whole Reverend Green stuff and everything, you meet the twins in the two-headed dog. You meet them with Sam again, and they're trying to discuss what to name the blanks. And this is where it's like Sam. They're all everybody but Sam at this point is drunk. Extremely drunk.
Yeah.
So then you get this whole conflict between Steve and Gary, and you get this really nice. So you get this nice bit around 51 minutes in where you get this. Obviously, Sam does not believe drunk Gary King at all. Well,
I mean,
obviously,
why would you? Yeah, absolutely.
Scary King. She walks out, and then for some reason, I don't understand it. The twins, who aren't their own entity, they're controlled by the network.
Yeah.
They double take on Sam, which doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
It feels like conflict. It's like, did you believe him, Sam? And it's like, of course you wouldn't.
Of course, it feels like it's for the sake of the movie.
Yeah. But then the network does obviously that it's not complete concrete like smart proof. It is a bit. But even then, it's a bit weird. But then it's another really well filmed fight between Gary and the two twins, and then you get Stephen come out and not only insult Gary but confess his love for Sam. I really like that scene. It's just it's building, and it needs to happen. And I like that Gary doesn't get pissed off with Stephen about it. He gets more angry at Stephen about him insulting his name than he does about him confessing to Sam. Fair enough. So then we're moving on from that after they get out. They've come up with the name blanks, set on it, and then they get to the Mermaid nightclub.
Mm-hmm.
The weakest bit in the film.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Apart from Basil.
I like Basil. I like Basil Cole, like the actor.
Yeah.
But and he is part of my problem with this scene, though.
Okay.
The reason I don't like this scene is that it's a massive exposition dump.
Yeah.
That doesn't entirely feel necessary because they explain it again at the end of the film.
Mm-hmm.
You get a nice little, like I say, you get the comedy with Stephen and Basil, but then it's weird watching three fully grown men who, yes, they're extremely drunk, but it's left to assume you don't know how young these women in school uniforms are trying to be.
Yeah.
I'll assume they're meant to be 18. They're not, yeah? Mm-hmm. But these guys are 40 years old, and and obviously Gary goes along with it completely because it's Gary fucking King.
Yeah.
Andy hates it. He tries to start, she takes the ring off, builds up a great little moment later. And then you get obviously Peter's a bit like, but Peter, bless him, bless his heart, is completely wanking.
Peter would have gone along with anything. He really would. Just to keep a conflict away.
As long as Gary was there as well. And then the only good bit of this scene is you can't if you do notice it very quickly, you realise that Oliver isn't Oliver.
Yeah.
Because he's immediately like, Sam, who's that girl? Who's that guy that you liked? Was it Adrian Keane? Oh, he's over there. And then obviously that gives it away completely, but not to the characters. Obviously to the audience. It's not meant to be a massive twist. It's just meant to be a cool little like. If you notice it, well done.
Mm. Well, surely the network would have known that Adrian Keane was dead, though.
I don't think it's meant to show that it's not.
It's not as intelligent as it wants to be.
Yeah, I also think it's a case of it assumed Sam was drunk like those lot.
Yeah.
So they didn't think it was going to click. So then she's like, Adrian Keane is dead. After they've run out. Take everyone with them. Andy's fuming that he lost his ring. Absolutely livid. Which is, I don't blame him.
No.
They get outside of the mermaid, and this is the best bit of this scene. The whole inside the mermaid, I'm not a massive fan of. It slows it down massively for this. I just don't like it. But then there's a nice little bit outside where it's like Oliver is like, "Where are you guys going?" And then you get Adrian Keane died 8 years ago, and you hear them mention Adrian Keane, and you get Stephen go prick, and he goes, "Adrian Keane died 10 years ago." He's like, "Oh God." That's a nice little
It's nice
then
that
you get-
Oliver doesn't react either, really.
Yeah.
Showing that, he's definitely a blank.
Yeah. And then you get Gary doesn't realise. He's like, I like the new you. It's like, but then you realise that this is where Andy realises. Andy, the smart ass that he is, the absolute badass that he is, realises that Oliver's a blank.
Yeah.
It's made even more clear to him just in like 5 seconds time. But he's pissed off about his ring already. He's realised something's wrong here, and he's still got to follow Gary King. He's not a happy boy.
No.
And then we get to, I really like the scene in the beehive. This is a scene with what's his name? Is it Piers? Not Piers Brosnan. Is it Piers Brosnan?
Piers Brosnan, yeah.
Yeah, get the scene with him. Obviously, yeah, Oliver. It can't start without
Shepherd.
you, Mr. Shepherd. Yeah. He's like, can't start without you, Andy. It's like, you are. He's like, we can't start without you. They go in, have this whole little like discussion. They talk about what Mr. Shepherd is trying to take them back in time again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then
the network at this point, it's showing all of its cards. It's saying,
at
this point,
it's
because it's not hiding the fact that Mr. Shepherd isn't really Mr. Shepherd, because if he was, he'd be a lot older than that. It's showing them, look what I can do. Do you want to join?
Yeah. And then obviously it's where Oliver shows his true cards properly as well, because he's always pushing. The network is pushing the network to tell more truths.
Yeah.
And then that's when you get this fight with Andy. Smashes Oliver's head off. You get the others like, what the fuck, Andy? And it's like, yeah, what the fuck? Andy. WTF. And then, again, you get I love the little throwback to the intro scene where it's Andy ripping his shirt again.
Yeah.
He goes, I fucking hate this. Get a really cool action scene again. I think the action scenes in this are filmed really well. There's less action scenes in Hot Fuzz, but the big one it does have is very well choreographed. It's a lot longer, and it's very well done. I really like the clever, but a lot of the time the camera movements in Hot Fuzz are very simple. But it gets everything. It gets everything you need to see. However, in Hot Fuzz, it's a lot. It's like in the bathroom fight, the first one earlier. It's a very short one take for a little bit, where it follows each character for a little bit. You see Peter fall across the ground, it follows him, it spins back around you. I really like how everything is. I'm a sucker for one takes. Get all that. Got that massive fight, and then we get to the smokehouse. After Sam drives away, there's this whole la-di-da. Although there is a scene between Sam and Gary where Sam actually... Oh, and the beehive fight shows the lads how pointless it is to fight completely.
No matter what they do, network can just make
They've just murdered an entire bar, and they're already back. The exact same people. I guess it can't be considered murder, but for the sake of it. So then Sam and Gary get to Sam's car, and Gary and Sam have this really nice little conversation. It's about how Sam does like Gary, but he's not boyfriend material. She's the first person in the film to get through to him. Mm-hmm. It's like he's like, we'll always have the disabled, there, won't we? Even though that's sort of him regressing, he does sort of he understands it.
Yeah,
he's starting to get it, and she goes, yeah, we'll always have the disabled. It's like, that's a really nice scene. You get to the smokehouse. This is where you find out that Gary's literally scarred all of his friends.
Yeah,
he broke a beer bottle off. He broke a beer bottle off Steve's arse. He rolled over Peter's leg with a scooter, and he's ruined Andy multiple times.
Yeah,
left him for dead, basically. Literally left his best friend for dead.
Literally, whatever. I'm out.
Yeah. And then you get a nice little place. Here's another issue actually. I don't find this. There was a recurring like gay jokes in this.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a fan.
No.
Felt a bit. It showed how childish Gary was.
Yeah.
At the age you're now, but it showed how the others had grown, because they only laughed at the King gay thing because they did it when they were younger, and it was funny.
Yeah.
But it was like, you guys haven't really done this sort of comedy before. This isn't you, you know. They're typically quite inclusive with it all, but it obviously didn't bug me enough to be like,
no,
yeah, I can read past it. But it was like, this is different. I'm not a fan. You have a really funny scene of how Gary proved. You find out later the reason he didn't want to show his arm, had his rehab band on. He didn't want to show it. So instead of that, smacks his head against the wall. It's like, see, I'm human. And then he goes, ah! And they're all like, that's Gary.
Yeah. I don't know what the other three were going to do though if they did kill him. Yeah, suddenly they've got a dead body on their hands, proper one.
True. I don't think they would have. I think they would have waited for him to prove, you know. And if not, I don't think they would have. I think they would have realised he bled blood rather than blue ink.
Yeah.
Plus, to be fair, Gary kind of deserves a beat down. Pete then, after this little bit, Pete gets his revenge. I'm sad that Peter dies, but he got to get back. Yeah. And that's nice.
He needed to die, really. It's a shame, but he did.
That was Peter's closure. Peter had a full entire arc throughout this entire film that went under the radar, and that's his full arc, and he got it, and he deserved it. You know, his whole thing. Then we get to the King's Head. This is where Gary's psyche starts like breaking. Obviously, they had to knock Gary out after Peter, because he wanted to carry on with the mile. But no, so Andy carries him to get to the King's Head, so that's the only way through to the beast. And this is where it's like, it all starts. This is where like the realization of how depressed Gary is. You know, and it shows how much Andy still does love Gary, as much shit he's putting through. He's like, mate, just come on, let's pack it in. You've done really well. 10 points. Well done. And Gary again. And I think at this point, I don't think it's Gary going off of being Gary. I think it's Gary going off of like, he's this close, he needs to finish it. I don't think he's doing it to put his friends in danger. I think he even tells them to just leave.
Yeah.
He says leave, you know. And even Steven's like, let's just leave. It's like, I can't. And he can't physically leave his best friend.
Yeah.
We get through hole in the wall. You get, you know, fucking Gary. Gary lets his true colours shine a little bit again here, where he lets Andy beat the shit out of all the blanks while he's having a pint. It's like, dude, come on, help your mate.
It is nice that hole in the wall does get a hole in the wall.
Yes, the car comes through. You think Stephen dies there, but it's not an on-screen death, so definitely not dead.
I mean, I don't understand how he survives all those blanks, though.
Neither am I. I'm assuming what happens. The only way I can assume what happens is that it does show that giant metal thing dragging out, you know, the car. I can only assume he either like revved so hard it hurt the metal creature, or the metal creature dropped and he somehow got out and just sprinted. It does show Andy being followed by a bunch of the blanks, so it's not all of them with that. It's the only explanation I've got for that.
The blanks are pretty slow runners as well.
Yeah, I think the more feel like they don't need to sprint as fast as they want anyway, because I don't think they run out of energy.
No,
I think they can. They're basically doing what human hunters did to survive. They just
chase it out.
Walk out. Tire them out. And then we get to the World's End, and this is like the full revelation, and really makes you actually feel bad for Gary. Like after this whole film of him being a bit of a cock, you get finally like understand it all for the most part. And before this, you see Andy get his ring back and everything. You feel great for him. You know, it's like, I want you inside me, Andy. All right, punches into a gut.
That is really good scene.
So they get to the world's end, and they have this whole. It's a really sad scene because it shows that Gary really can't. He can't get out of the past at all. He's depressed to fuck. He's really sad. He's never moved on. He just wants to live. You know, it never got better for him. They all did well. And then you get a really nice little bit from Andy. It's like, my wife's left me, and God knows I'm trying to get her back. You know, it hits so many different topics in one little scene. It's how long is it? I do have it here. It's only 3 minutes long, and it has the entire message of the whole film in it. Yeah. Which is lovely. And then I'll leave my bit. We'll get back to your what I think is the best scene in Hot Fuzz is the whole village scene. And then we'll do, because I do think your village scene is a lot stronger than my film. It's not the full ending because obviously there's like always 2 finales to Edgar Wright's films. So we'll say this is the first finale. You've got your village scene. I've got my arguing with the network scene, and then obviously get the actual ending.
So, best scene in Hot Fuzz. It can't just be one scene for me. It's got to be. It's got to be the paperwork montages. Just all of them, if you could include them as one scene. Just the fact that they're able to make something that's so boring and make it appear cool. It's a really good trick, and it's something Edgar Wright's very good at. I've noticed in a lot of his movies, he can take something that's kind of just dull and you just do, and he can make it look cool. I think it's the way he adds sound to it and the way it's shot. It makes things appear cool that perhaps aren't meant to be cool, and it's yeah, it's nice that he's able to do that.
Mine's the Peter scene. All right, so village scene, right. Village in Summerfield, the storming of Summerfield.
Yes. So at this point, we've got the fantastic shootout. You get Nicholas riding in on a horse, and it feels like a western. It feels.
He's got his wings.
Yeah,
which is cool.
It feels like a western. It's so cool. Like, you don't get this from British cops. You don't get British cops carrying guns, and it's so different from the rest of the movie. It's just awesome, and suddenly everything goes wrong. All the people are like, "Oh, it's Nicholas Angel. He's back. Right, we'll have to kill him." And he's got to fight. He's got to survive. He's got to bring these people in, which is something I really like about the whole shootout in Hot Fuzz. He doesn't kill anybody. He just injures them, so that way they can all be processed and they can all go and face their time, because the law is the law.
He sticks to the law.
Yeah, he's not been authorized to shoot anybody, so he shouldn't be killing anybody, should he? And it's a subtle nod to earlier in the movie when it shows that at the church scene, he's a good shot. He's able to only injure these people. He doesn't have to kill them. He doesn't want to kill them. That's not who he is. And then obviously you get the Reverend coming out, the one person that you think, okay, maybe he's not in on it. The one person, and nope, he's in on it.
Shoot, grasshopper.
the gun's coming out of the sleeves. That's so cool.
It's very it always reminds me, even though it came out afterwards, it always reminds me of Django Unchained.
Yeah.
Christoph Waltz. It always makes me think
Maybe that's where
yeah,
they
the
got
village.
that from.
Maybe that village scene. So
And then obviously you get into the pub with the chief inspector again, chief of police of Sanford, and you get the other cops coming in, and Nicholas has to try his hardest. He's got one last chance to convince these guys, come on, I am right. Everything around you is wrong. Please believe me. And he's literally a man begging here, which it shows he, if they don't believe him, he's still going to do what he has to do. He just really needs the help. And the scene just before that, when the bear trap drops onto the guy's head, even then, I watch that and I think, he must be dead. Nope.
Yeah,
he's still alive.
They leave it in, don't they?
Yeah, leave it in so that he can't bleed out. And
there's something I don't fully get in that little bar scene. Why does the chief of police have a lion?
Why does he what?
So when he's about to run away,
yeah,
after they do all the police actually come to their senses.
Mm-hmm. Finally.
When he starts to run away, he has this roar, and it's like a lion's roar. It's an edited in lion's roar. I'm like,
I have no answer to that.
I don't fully understand it. A weird edit.
Yeah. Maybe they just thought it was funny.
Maybe.
It was an accident of filming and they just thought it was hilarious, so kept it in there.
Fuck it.
So then you eventually get to the car chase as well, which is really nice because they've still got the blues and twos on. You've got to have the blues and twos going. And then they find the swan. It's like they're so dedicated to their job. Right, we'll get the swan in.
Really good recurring joke.
Yeah, it's the fact that they're still, even during this madness, they're still willing to do their job properly. Well, we were asked to get this swan. Let's get him. And the fact that the swan is the one that actually ends up saving the day in the end is quite nice. So then we get to the scene with the model village. Skinner and the chief of police.
I really like the implication of this fight, because it's literally Skinner and Nicholas Angel fighting over their village.
Yeah.
Really, it's clever, like symbolism.
And it's nice that Skinner takes the kid hostage, and obviously, I think it's meant to be a gypsy kid. He's got ginger hair, he's got that sort of Irish gypsy-ish accent. It's quite a hard accent for anywhere else to have. So I think it's meant to be a gypsy kid. It shows that Nicholas is looking out for everybody, regardless of who they are. The fact that he's fighting for this gypsy kid who before Sanford were like, no, we do not want gypsies in Sanford. Whereas now under Nicholas Angel, anybody's, it's a different Sanford. And I
think what's also funny about that gypsy kid is he ends up, his name's a throwback, isn't it?
Yeah.
To an earlier scene, which I found brilliant. I can't remember it off, but it's really Aaron A. Aronson.
Yeah, Aaron A. Aronson. Yeah. That's a great name.
Yeah.
If there's any Aronsons out there, please name your child Aaron A. And then you eventually get the kid bites Skinner, which I like that because it shows this kid's tough. He's able to deal with that, and he's not bothered. He's going to get away. And then I like that Skinner trips over a Summerfield van in the model village. It's his own company that gets the better of him, and he gets impaled by the church spire, which it's a nice little nod to the fact that it's pretty obvious Skinner is the one that killed the news reporter.
Slap the rat.
Yeah. He's definitely the one that killed him out of the NWA. He's the one that killed him, and the fact that he gets stabbed by the church spire. It's quite nice that, you know, in a way, the reporter got his revenge, but not really. And then obviously we get the scene with the chief of police getting into the car, and the Swan bites him.
Threatens Danny.
He threatens Danny. It shows that he's willing to risk his own child for getting Village of the Year, which, my God, that's no.
Yeah, and then it's Danny's whole arc as well, isn't it? He gets He gets his what's the film? It's not those two, it's the other one.
I don't know.
God damn it! But it's just, you know, he gets that moment. He gets his action film.
Yeah. He gets his action movie moment. Like, he's trying to shoot his dad and he just can't, so he's shooting up in the air. It's really nice.
Obviously, the Swan.
The Swan.
That, they were after the entire time saves the day.
The Swan saves the day. Hits into the tree, and then you get the lovely scene with the London police officers have finally arrived in Sandford, and they ask Nicholas if he wants to come back. And it's nice to see that Nicholas is he's grown, he's adapted. He's like, no, I quite like it here. And it's nice that that's what he said before leaving to go to Sandford.
And also, the tickets over the London police thing. The only reason they wanted him back was because their numbers had dropped.
Yeah.
Anchor.
Yeah, they only care about their numbers, the London police officers in this, obviously.
So, yeah. So that's your finale. Your first finale has over there.
Yeah.
Because the finale, your finale it's a lot more action packed.
Yeah.
It doesn't focus on the comedy. It's got a comedy in the shoot.
Yeah, it's got its bits.
It's not got like vocal comedy.
Yeah,
it
turns into kind of a stereotypical cop movie at that point.
Yeah,
but even still in its own way.
Yeah, apart from obviously like you get the meme in Summerfield.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got the shame, and obviously, don't worry, Andy, it's only bolognese sauce. You get all that, and you get to see obviously you get to see Tony come into his own.
Yeah, suddenly he's amazing.
It's got everything. It's like he's been listening to Nicholas the whole time.
Yeah,
everything builds there. My issue with the first finale of World's End is you sort of knew it was leading to some big revelation, and I like it shows that the network isn't as smart as it thinks. Because if you ever notice, every time he says Gary King, he goes, Gary King of the humans.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it makes it's like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But I think what I have an issue with this first finale is that it takes away from the actual message this film was trying to get across. Because then try and make it all about the actual human race rather than the other topics it was handling. It's a really funny scene. It's incredibly funny.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, Gary finally has the chance as well to be his younger self. Rips off his younger self. It's like, there's only one Gary King, which leads to later, and it's like, everybody on the world is Gary King, but you just, I know what I fucking said. Yeah, you get that. It's a really good, it is a good scene, but it subtracts from the rest of the film's tone.
Mhm.
I think. You get to find out Steven's alive. You know, they all succumb to how drunk they are.
Yeah, they are
It's
far gone.
It is, yeah, it's really, really funny, and it is really good. It's just, it lets itself down by trying to cross a different topic.
Mhm.
I think is the only.
Yeah, it kind of goes from fears of growing up and oppression and stuff like that to the human race, we're all mess ups, and but that's what makes us human. It changes.
A message that we've all heard a million times, and yes, we need to hear it, but sometimes like there are other subjects films can tackle.
Yeah.
And then they get out. They win. They wear down the network to become childlike because it insults Harry as well.
Yeah.
And all this no need for profanity. Proves that you were just immature. And he just keeps. Gary interrupts, and he just goes, "What is it exactly that you want?" And then they quote the song that they keep going.
Yeah.
We want to be free. We want to be loaded. We want to have a good time. And he goes, "All right, we'll leave." And he's like, "What, really?" It's like, "Yeah, fuck it." And that's it. Network shuts off, becomes immature, as he says, because he swore. Then you get this really good CGI explosion. But it's not even really. Sam comes back and rescues them. Thank you, Sam. Well done, Sam. Come back, rescue them, and then as they drive away, it's not. I don't even know what you can call it. Explode. It's like an EMP, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is meant to be an EMP.
It looks good.
Yeah.
I can imagine they were still working on a budget, but it was a really good electric field, which sometimes look practical, like explosion, like airplay, and then and it ends with them on the field where they started the film off. After the little intro, which is nice. It's like Gary finally actually says sorry, and he's not saying sorry for everything that went on that night. He's saying sorry for everything. At that point, Gary,
he's a changed man.
He was he'd grown up, so you still get Gary's thingy, and it's nice to see Andy accept him. And obviously you see that Sam and Steven are together, and then that leads into the final, obviously the second finale that all these, which is, it's nice because you get to learn how the world went. You find out Andy got his life back together. He tries. I like that Andy sort of starts lying to himself though. He says like, "Oh, it's fine. I'm fine going organic," and then a Cornetto wrapper flies by. It's like, you find out. Yeah. You find out Peter got to be a good dad again, even though it's not real Peter. It's Blank. Yeah. Same with Blank.
Yeah.
Oliver got to live the life again. Stephen and Sam were happy, and you get a nice little joke. It's like, it's a nice cottage actually, because obviously Stephen probably built it and knew everything what to do.
Yeah.
And then you get the excellent little bit with Gary. Nobody knew where Gary went. Andy didn't know. Andy hopes that Gary misses Andy, but Andy also misses Gary. And then you see that Gary's trying to clean, he's walking with his old mates, his younger mates, because that's who he missed. And he can, he doesn't have to disappoint these because they're not really, his friend. Walks into this bar, no blanks, everything. He walks in, takes his mask. He's clean shaven. He no longer looks like terrible. You can tell he's probably changed himself. And then he orders the 5 waters, which, like I say, is a callback because he remembered what Andy said to him earlier in the film. Being like, it takes balls to walk into a big crowded pub and order a water, and this guy walks in with blanks and orders 5. It's like, yes, you listen to him, Gary. And then he gets his nice little, they call me the king. He gets that nice little moment, and then the film ends. I think the second finale is better than the first, but without the best part of the second. I think my second finale is better than your second finale.
Yeah, much more happens in The World's End's second finale. All I kind of get is we just get some more paperwork scenes. Everybody's finally accepted Nicholas now, which is nice. They forget that one guy in the NWA, and obviously then the sea mine blows him up. Which, how did any of them survive that? That's insane.
It's an action film.
Yeah, just go with it. And then obviously you get the scene with Nicholas taking the flowers to the grave, and you see that it's Danny's last name, and you're like, oh no, Danny!
There's no way they actually killed him.
Yeah, and
really
then Danny shows up, and you're like, oh, it's okay. Then you get them in the police car, and they've both been promoted, which was very quick. Even with what they did, it's still very quick promotions.
I mean, if I'd imagine Nicholas Angel became chief of police.
Yeah, he did.
So
Danny became sergeant.
I don't think anybody would have argued.
Yeah, I think at that point as well, there's nobody else left to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I think he probably always wanted to be chief of police somewhere. So, it still feels a bit quick, but that's just me being nitpicky. And then you get the nice scene with them driving away to their next thing after Olivia Colman's character tells them that they have to go somewhere, which is nice. But I think the first finale is the better of the two, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So at this moment, just before we go on to the conclusion, I think I've been sort of keeping a little tally for how I've been. So at this point, I got the first two because you agreed with the intro. You got the mid section, and I gave you your first. I think it's 3-3.
Right.
So what I am gonna give Hot Fuzz. I'll give Hot Fuzz. I think the comedy's better. So you can. I think that's a fair point. I think the action's better in World's End. If you'll agree on that.
Yeah, the camera movements make it
a bit better.
Yeah.
So we're still even. is my favourite I know about this film, which you might bump me up a bit. I think this might. So we know how genius Edgar Wright is.
Yes.
So did you know that? So all 12 pubs in that film, they tell you the entire plot of the film.
Oh god, yeah.
So the first post, the first pub, the first drink, drinking off.
Yeah.
All familiar. Sam comes in. You get the famous cop, Gary himself, gets kicked out of that pub. You got the cross hands. It's the first fight scene. You get good companions. It's all of the friends, like all of them, having to fake being happy, good with each other.
Yeah.
It shows that the actual sign itself is 4 golden faces with 1 blue face. The blue face being Gary.
Yeah.
The trusty servant is the Reverend Green and his mates. Then you've got the 2-headed dog, the twins.
Yeah.
The mermaid is a reference to sirens. So obviously they get floored by the women.
Yeah.
Then you get the beehive. It's a massive fight scene kicking the beehive. You get the king's head, which is, I think it's meant to be like Gary succumbing to his, how he feels about everything. Because Gary King. Hole in the wall. You pointed that one out.
Yep.
The car. And then World's End itself.
Pretty obvious, yeah.
I think that is fucking genius.
It is, yeah.
That's incredible. Like, it's just the effort you've got to go for it, because they also, it's not just the fact that he's done that, but they all sound like legitimate UK pubs as well. So it's like brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then obviously my conclusion for World is it's the fact on how it's the scenes that make it really good. Is obviously Peter's trauma, because it deals with bullying, like how people don't really grow from too well, because it does impact you in life, or you will remember it. Like going through that myself, it just I reconcile it. It's a very powerful scene, and then seeing Gary himself, who's been a dickhead the entire film, actually accept that he was in the wrong, and actually it took him so many years, but he apologized, and he admitted everything he did wrong, and he grew from it massively. He grew up, and it's hard to grow up. It's hard to want to leave behind what was fun. Or so for Gary, and it wasn't even his fault. It was the fact that he was so consumed with wanting to be cool, but he couldn't accept himself that he hadn't changed.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing and Andy again is the best character in the film, because Andy throughout the entire film stays true to himself and his friends, and even then, even after everything Gary did, he still wanted to help his best mate. And I can see myself in that as well. So I think it's the fact that I really relate to so many characters in this film that hit hard for me. Mm-hmm. That's why I think it is better film, and it's just something that I can watch all three of these films back to back, and really enjoy all. But I can watch Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead and not really feel too much now. As much as I love them, I'll still laugh at the comedy. I'll still understand everything that's going on, but it still points in like The World's End still like get me to think back and actually the parts that make me somber, and actually be invested in a film I've already seen.
So. Right. So Hot Fuzz. I will admit now, The World's End does actually mean much more to me than Hot Fuzz as a movie, because The World's End was the first 15 I ever went to go see in the cinema. Just turned 15 around that time, so went to go see it. Fantastic, great experience. It's also the reason that I have my English GCSE, because when I did my GCSEs, in my exam, it came up that we got to do a review, and I reviewed The World's End. So yes, it does mean more to me, The World's End. But in saying that, I think the fact that I picked Hot Fuzz when The World's End means so much to me shows that it is a better movie. It's more well structured. I'd say it's a much more interesting concept. It's got more going on, whilst at the same time not being too bloated with what's going on. I feel The World's End can be a bit bogged down with what's going on. There's too much for it to try and do. It hasn't got the space to breathe like Hot Fuzz does. Hot Fuzz has its moments where things kind of calm down, but things are still going on. Whereas The World's End suddenly grinds to a halt and everything stops for you to catch up, but it's still not really letting you catch up. There's too much to take in. Whereas Hot Fuzz gives you that time. It lets, you discover things at the same rate that everybody else does. Where in The World's End, if you watch it properly, you can tell what's going to happen immediately. You know where it's going before the characters do. Whereas in Hot Fuzz, you don't. You are essentially a character yourself in Hot Fuzz, which is one of the things I really like. So
we need to end this on some form of an agreement.
we do.
I think. So what I think is going to be the best thing to say, and if we get comments on this and stuff, I'd love to hear people's opinions.
Yep, we
I really would
love
actually
to hear what you think.
I think I'll agree with you. Hot Fuzz is the better film.
Yes.
I'll agree with that. But I think it's fair to say that The World's End is a more impactful film.
Yeah.
Hot Fuzz. I think The World's
could just, it could fly by. People would enjoy it, but it perhaps wouldn't have
It's a really well self-contained film.
Yes.
World's End is meant to hit the viewer more than I think that's the better way to say it. So Hot Fuzz is the better film, and again, the comedy in that film, so good. I do quote Hot Fuzz. I do.
I mean, Hot Fuzz has more memes as well.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think The World's End it's just a more impact. All right. Well,
and as well, here's just a quick point. You might be wanting to talk about the elephant in the room, Paul. It's terrible. End of story. Job done.
the only thing we can give Paul is that again, Nick Frost and Simon Pegg are the best bits about it.
Yes, and even they, you can tell they aren't really trying. They're kind of just themselves.
Yeah. Although there is one line in Paul that I do enjoy, and it's that motherfucking titty sucking 2-ball bitch. I just love how it it don't rhyme, but it rolls. I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that,
it's terrible.
That's so bad. we're never, that's never getting covered.
No, we're never going to talk any more than that about it.
No, that's as much as you can.
There will be episodes where we do talk about movies that we hate. We don't really. It's not so much that we hate it; it's just boring.
Yeah. So after this was our first episode. Second episode, we're gonna see how this does. If we get a few views and stuff, and then what do you think our next little thing will be? We should agree on that here.
Yes.
So we've got. What would be good to do? Got a good amount. How about we do either Deadpool or Lord of the Rings?
I'd say go for Deadpool just because I have more time then.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll do Deadpool next because there's at least 2 of them as well.
Yeah.
I'm arguing for the first one. I think the first one's the better one.
Right. Well, I wanted this.
I don't know. Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Yeah. That's just a teaser.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be a bit more arguing for that one. So, Lord of the Rings, I think we'll do for that. We'll leave it to when, hopefully, because I want to be able to film your reaction to it.
Okay.
So we'll do that, and yeah, Deadpool's our next one. And yeah, any comments we get, tell us which you think was better. We'd love to hear on.
Yeah. Tell us who you agree with, and tell us any points that we missed.
Or if you love Shaun of the Dead, say why.
Yeah. We enjoy it as well. Obviously, it's just we prefer the other movies.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, I've been Dom.
I've been Luke. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time, guys.